Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toku Portal podcast for Kamen Rider Saber. I'm Bashi V, and joining me today is...
Hello everyone, it's me Zero here, and not alone, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yes,
I kind of fell asleep last week.
it's fine. Honestly, yo, you know what the worst part is? I actually did that podcast live, and then I realized I didn't hit something, so YouTube wasn't fucking porting it out. So I had to re-upload the damn recording. But,
Like, I,
yeah,
I thought it was odd because when I went back and looked at you, when I ended up having to make the event for yesterday, it was like, yeah, this one was uploaded, not live streamed. I'm like, odd.
yeah. So like I live
I figured
streamed it,
something
and
went.
then I guess I didn't push like the publish button or the stream button or something because you guys turned off like auto stream, right? So I guess I didn't fucking port it out, but it was getting sent to YouTube. So I'm like, oh, that's annoying. But
That was
um, honestly,
odd.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, because like I haven't messed with any of the settings in terms of like starting the podcast. Like it's set to auto start.
Well, I set the new one to auto start, but who cares? Anyways,
And I
something
got
was
you.
off, but it's fine. Also, like weirdly enough, my like last podcast was rambly and nonsense because like I couldn't remember like half the talking points and stuff. And then I went and saw like what well, not everybody, but like what people were saying about it and learning a couple of things here and there, and then it's like, oh shit, my like half-ass like, oh, this is sort of interesting, that kinda sorta interested but not even super interested take on this show is like probably in the top like 80% of like, oh yes, this is the positive section, and I'm in there with the, oh yeah, it's not terrible. Because like most people, for some guy, well, I mean, I know the reason, are really fucking hating this show.
I have a couple of ideas as to why.
Yeah, I mean, considering you
Um,
weren't on the last podcast, you can say your thoughts on episode one and on the show in general at this point. I'll tell
so
you what
episode
like if I'll tell you what some other things people are saying and stuff.
like it's more of my I feel my issues are more with the extravagant use of CG, which is kind of expected, especially in the first handful of episodes of your series before it starts to kind of mellow out because they kind of blow their CG budget.
Sort
Um,
of. What's happening this time is they're trying to use Unreal Tournament for or Unreal Engine, sorry, Unreal Engine for because they rebranded it. Sorry, yeah. So they're using the new Unreal Engine. So they're kind of trying to do it like Garo, where it's like the like otherworld fight scenes are all CGI, and to cut down on the CGI stuff, they're trying to do it all in Unreal Engine, which like yeah, Garo was pretty fucking rough when it started too, but like that's what's happening is like it looks super kind of fake CGI, like not even up to their usual stuff. Is because they're doing a new method. Is like they're trying to use the game engine, and that would be weird. Except you have to remember that like the Mandalorian literally just used Unreal live on set to do their shit. I mean, like
right.
they didn't use it for like final like production stuff, but it's like because they were using such a digitized set. It was more to see like just a general preview of what the fuck is going on in the scene.
Right, kind of like what they're more used in like the pre-planning stages of
Well, sort of.
how do they want it to look kind of thing
Yeah, it's
and
more
what to
like
kind of expect.
right. It was basically like showing like a live preview of what the hell's going on in the scene, just not as high detailed. I'm thinking that's what they were using it for, but here these guys are using it for final production, but like they're not at the top of their game. Also, the other
No, no, they're not.
yeah, they're not. I feel like they got a little bit better this episode, but they also mixed it up where they put a lot more live action into it. So my other thought too is like, tell it, goddammit, textures exist, you motherfuckers. Learn to use textures. because they want to do everything in like materials and shade with materials and shaders, and the problem is like it looks plasticky as fuck. Because unless you
Yeah.
sit down and render like you have to like bake the scene or like real time rate like trace ray tracing and stuff like that is like real difficult in reflections and stuff. So like it'll always look plasticky if you do it in real time, and you're using a game engine, so of course it's sort of doing that. But it's like, damn it, man, if you want to minimize that shit, you have a suit, just fucking take pictures of it and use it as the texture for the model. It would look a lot better. Like, yeah, it'll still look fake, but I'm like, hey, look, man, your CGI has never been like the top of the world anyway, so it would be better than this. But it's like, yeah,
But
that's
like,
my one advice. Like, use textures, goddammit.
I feel the CG in 01 was done much better, despite the fact of like my biggest gripe in 01 with the CG was the initial flying falcon scene
Right.
when Naruto first gets it, and it just like looks like a ad for the Kamen Rider game.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because I've seen the commercials for those, because we get them every year.
I think,
In
like,
small doses, I feel in small doses that comes out fine.
right. Like,
It's
like
just
if it's something batshit crazy,
like this
the
episode.
no, I was gonna say like the Wizard Forze thing, where it's like in the movie where they're like fucking like attacking the villains on the side, like driving into a volcano. It's like there's no way in hell you can ever do this shot any other way, right? So
Right.
it's like we're gonna put CG here. We don't have like Hollywood budgets to do CG, so like I'll let it slide. Whereas this, what's happening is like in 01, what they used to do is like After Effects, which is like standard editing software
Right.
for effects and stuff. But that's not what this is. This is a game engine, so this is all CG, which means like
So
it's gonna be a learning process. It's gonna like they can get to like the Garo level where it's like, yeah, it started off real rough. I mean, it was better than this because it they weren't using a game engine. They were like CG, like personally
right.
doing it. So it's a little bit better. But the thing is, like, even Garo got relatively good at incorporating it later on. So I feel like because this season is the season with the pandemic, they're kind of just like being like, okay, you know what? The season's a write off anyway, for the most
Like try
part.
let's be as safe. Let's try to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say let's try to experiment because we're gonna like the excuse is, oh, for safety reasons we had to cut down on shit, right? So
Well,
it's like, well, that gives them
I
an
meant
excuse to like play around with the CGI,
like
and
I meant safe more in the we don't have to have people on set if there's no set.
right, that's why they're pretty much doing the other world shit, right?
Like the issue I have like looking at this is like Toei's been at the CG game for a while. They've never been fantastic at it. This is just honest. But they have made leaps and bounds from Power Rangers Turbo level of era special effects and whatnot to now. They like it's leaps and bounds different. But using a game engine is fundamentally different. I feel like they didn't get enough advice from people because at this point it's no longer CG, it's machinima.
Yeah, I mean
You
that's pretty much that's why I'm saying it's like Garo, because what happens is when they go into the other world, usually it's like there's too many monsters. You can't do this on set. So it's
right.
just CGI, which I'm like, all right, if you're doing crazy shit like that where it's like it's not really possible. Like they do some interesting stuff in this where it's like they're going through an entire like couple of blocks, right? Where they're getting attacked by monsters from all sides, like it's a siege type thing where I'm like, okay, there's no way they could ever do this in live action, especially nowadays. So I can kind of let it slide where it's like, all right, this is kind of adding to the ambition. But you're right, they didn't take the time to learn this.
Right.
But
like and
but Toei's like
to be
CGI
fair,
guys are like a couple of dudes or maybe just one person. So I'm like, I can't really blame them because like, like how much
right.
can you
But
expect? But yeah, again, go ahead.
given the fact that machinima has become a massive industry, primarily here within the United States and surrounding, I understand Toei's very hesitant to go outside the company for help. But when you're figuring out how to do something, it would, especially first to break into using an industry that already exists, there are contacts that you can make to get advice and on how to do things to where it looks right, rather than for a company like people starting out, like just for example, easy example, Rooster Teeth with Red versus Blue. Once they started in the world into the Machinima CG mix, which let's be fair, that's what this is. It looked like shit. It was good, but it looked like crap because they literally learned how to do it themselves.
Yeah, plus, right, again, and they got a lot better once they got like a dedicated animator who actually
right, and dedicated team. Well, it's now just
it's just a company.
90%.
Yeah.
Well, now it's just 90% interns from Full Sail.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of sad.
But it's that point of if you're gonna do something, especially on a grand scale, and Toei's usually pretty good at trying to figure out how to do things the right way to where it looks as best as possible. I mean, hell, look at their freaking video games that
okay, like
that O's Wizard double game that's coming out that we saw the trailer for.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So like a lot of things
looks better than this.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like you're kind of getting a couple things mixed up there because what's happening there is that's a Bandai game. So Namco Bandai is like a game company. They know what the fuck they're doing. But as also for CGI though, no. But for CGI, they don't help Toei doing CGI. And the other thing too is like Toei has this bad habit, or like Japanese companies in general, but Toei also, is like, no, we do shit our way and fuck you. So it's like they're most likely not going to accept help, right? Because it's like if they really wanted to, like they could easily fucking find or outsource, like especially for like this, what they're doing is like it's mostly like it's just pure CGI, right? Like you don't need to do it in Japan. Worst comes to worst, right? Like you could just send it to a render farm who knows what the fuck they're doing. But like Toei, well, okay, to be fair, you have to remember these shows are made on a really low budget, so like they don't generally have the money to spend doing stuff like that. But Toei also has this habit of not letting other people help them when they should.
Right, and to me it fundamentally comes down to learn to fucking ask for help. This was a point where you needed to ask for help, and you just decided not to.
I mean, it's just
even just with like you said, it's like primarily the major issue is the texturing.
Right. I mean,
and the
like I don't even need everything to be textured. I'm like just fucking texture the writer's suits. God damn it! Like, don't do it with materials. You have the literal suits right there. Just take high quality pictures and put it as the textures.
Right. It's like, and at least do that, the background, and at least make the monsters not look blobby.
Well, yeah, like I don't care about the background. Like that's too much work, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care. Like it's a fake world. It's fine. But at least make it look like the writers are actually sort of in there. I mean, yeah, it won't look great, but at least it'd be a start. But that being said, like, I'm willing to give them this season to learn, because if they can get used to using this and incorporate it into their production pipeline, it will help them later on. Like, it definitely helped Garo going forward. But at this point, Garo's been using it for like a decade. So, like, they know what the fuck they're doing. So, like, I'm willing to let the CGI go if they learn from this. But, yeah, they should have asked for it.
If it progresses, I'm fine with it. About the only other issue CG-wise that I have is, my god, did they go overkill on the fucking fire and water effects.
Oh, yeah.
Which I understand, but damn.
Well, to be fair, like, that's one of the things is, like, they're probably using After Effects for that type of shit, but it's like, they know at this point how to do After Effects stuff, so yeah, they're gonna do a lot of that too. The reason is the fight styles is a lot. Okay, I'll tell me your thoughts on the stuff, then I'll tell you what everybody else said, and then I'll give you some info later. Yeah.
Like for me overall, like the episode was by no means a bad start. It was a very odd start. Not even going to argue that. Especially with I forget what his name is, the weirdo at the beginning. The guy who's reading the book. With the weirdo outfit.
Oh god. Okay, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's I can find the name, but I'm just gonna call him the narrator. But the point is, like, that's the character I hate the most in the show, honestly. Like, they're trying to do the wacky, like, narrator character, or like they're trying to like basically fuse Waz
And Sen.
yeah, Senin from Ghost, and it's like this is like the worst version of both of those characters.
And
Right.
we literally had a horrible version of Waz.
Yeah, I know, it's fucking sad.
Like
Oh,
I get the foregone necessity of having a narrator. Usually it's literally just a friggin' narrator.
well, I mean, normally they don't need it. It's just Waz was so popular. Oh, so there's an interesting story about Waz. Is like Waz was never supposed to be part of Zio. So like he auditioned, and they just liked the actor so much they wrote the part of Waz for him. So like the best part of Zio was never even supposed to be in that show, right? Like
that is fantastic because the world needs more Waz.
right, like that actor is freaking amazing. So good for
Right.
him. But this whole thing of like, oh, we need a narrator. I'm like, since when? Like, right? Like, writer doesn't need narrators. Like, a couple shows have done it, but it's like, okay, I get it. Maybe this is like your thing. Like, each writer tends to have kind of tropes that they use. But I guess Ghost Rider likes narrators. But I'm like, why this character? Like, this is so over the top.
Right, and 100% unnecessary.
Right. Well, I mean,
Here's my prediction because I'm going the send narration route of for some reason, at some point he will be integral to the story.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. And honestly, like,
And I'm not
okay, yeah,
looking
that
forward
would
to it.
justify that character's existence, but I'm like, God, I hate this character. Like, I don't want to see more of him. But you're right; it's probably gonna be like he's gonna be real important to the show.
Like the story sets up the show sets up an interesting premise, which I'm actually intrigued by. And given this episode, I do want to point this out. I give them credit for doing the CG transformation scenes, but filming them again in the in the outfits that they are wearing for the episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, it's basically just CGI anyway, so it's like it cost them nothing to do it in front of a green screen, right?
So it's
And
literally
so
like,
so what they're doing is like it's the Sentai transformation. It's in Japan, I guess they call that the bank system. So it's like, oh, it's here we just call it fuck, what do we call it? When you just reuse
assets,
no, not assets. When you use like reuse footage, stock footage, yeah. So it's like stock footage, and then in Japan, basically they just call it the bank system for henshining, where it's like, oh, person says henshin, and then it just cuts to the morphing grid or whatever, and then they henshin and they come back. Whereas this is like, yeah, holy shit, that's a pretty insane writer background. Like the library, a lot of details. Like, why would you use that for a writer? It's like, oh, then you see it happen in 2 episodes. It's like, oh, okay, this is the place where like pretty much all the writers are gonna henshin.
right?
I mean, like maybe the villains will have like another one, but for the most part.
I give them credit for the only thing that is part of the bank is essentially the effects. Because Toma transformed last episode, white and black outfit. Today he transformed. And the transformation sequence with the whole thing, with all the effects, was in the outfit he was wearing in this particular episode. So they're still refilming the transformations, like the poses and the whole thing. They're not just doing the Sentai thing of, oh, doesn't matter what they were wearing, how their hair is, it's just the same reused footage. They're actually altering the footage so far every time, and I do enjoy that.
Yeah,
Because once I saw that's what they did last week, I wasn't looking forward to the transformation this week, beyond the fact that we knew somebody else was going to be in it.
Right. So like my counter argument to that is like that only happens for the main character, because like all the secondary riders have custom suits, right? Like for the most part. So like yeah, of course they can reshoot the main guy over and over because like we just had to shoot him. Everybody else is gonna have like their own like one outfit that they wear like throughout the whole show for the most part.
Right, like Ryunosuke is basically wearing the poor Time Jacker outfit.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I was gonna say it's like knockoff Spectre, but yeah, you're right. It's worse than both of them.
It's a mixture of the bad bits of both of them.
Oh, I know. It's sad.
But let's go ahead and dive into this particular episode.
Well, okay. Before
unless
that,
you want to touch on something else.
Yeah, I was gonna say like overall thoughts on the show so far, and then I'm gonna just tell you like what the fans have been saying, sort of.
Like honestly, aside from Mr. Twinkles or whatever this weirdo is, and I'm not trying to offend anybody by that comment, so let me clarify that now. Look at him. That's a weirdo.
Yeah, that is.
You would not talk to this guy in public. You would run away.
It's true.
Let's be fair.
Yeah, let me just look up what his name is.
Aside from him and them not understanding how to use the Unreal Engine to the best of their capabilities, I actually like the show. It's a decent start. It's very standard. Of Ryder has connections to this thing that ends up giving them powers, because we had the flashback thing explanation of it in the form of the Natsume Conjuring, channeling Decade a little bit. Yeah. But overall it starts out fairly solid. We know very little about the villains beyond what we were given for the premise of the show. So we understand the basic motivations and what they're attempting. What they're physically actually doing we have no real idea. We get a little bit of it this episode though. But it's not bad. To me it's that mediocre start to a show that could be either very bad or fantastic.
Okay, I stand corrected. Apparently, Ryder does need a narrator because apparently this is a freaking long-running Ryder trope. Yeah, so there's like a ton of people who are narrators. Anyway.
Right, well, some of them were just voice.
Yeah, most of them are just voice.
Like technically, 01 had a narrator.
Well, I mean,
technically,
they're kind of all just referencing that the original show always had like narration at the beginning of each episode.
Right, to catch you up every week.
Yeah.
Like, because instead of doing like what we do in the U.S., like, because I'm watching it, I'm going to reference Arrow and pretty much anything in the Flash first, where like the first 4 minutes are just, here's everything from episode 1 to now in a mashed up clip to kind of get you up to speed of what's going on so you're prepared for the episode. Instead of doing that, they have like this guy giving you, the brief little synopsis of what happened last week.
Right. Fuck, what the hell? Okay, anyway, I can't find this name right now. But, yeah. So let me just tell you what the hell everybody else was talking about, especially, I haven't seen what anybody's thoughts about episode 2 is, but like episode 1, holy fuck do people not like this show. like, so negative. People are like super ready. Like I think like half the people dropped the show already after one episode, right? Or at least are like super on the fence. Like some people are super pissed off. Other people are just like real let down after 01. Other people are like so ticked off that this is like way too much like Sentai, especially the first episode, which was like basically a Sentai plot where it's like, oh look, you met the
Giant
red.
monster and all.
Right, giant monster, you met the red, freaking bank system for Henshin, right? Like otherworld type thing. It's like it's so Sentai-esque that first episode. And
Which I'm not gonna argue. I can't argue that it is.
yeah, it's and like I could see a little more Garo going on, but like if you don't know Garo, then you all you're gonna see is like Sentai, right? And I'm
Right.
like I can't argue it. It's there, and so the thing is like yeah, for their next writer show, like after the hype levels that was 01, like yeah, I can see why people are pissed. Also, like the acting is not super great, especially because these are younger actors. They don't know like oh man, episode 1, yeah, they're a little over the top. Episode 2, slightly. Okay, what's happening in episode 2 is like the main actor, when he gets angry or like real fiery and serious, he gets a little better at acting, but I don't know what the hell is going on. Like, is it bad directing or just bad overall face? Like, he can't act super well with his face, or maybe it's just bad directing because, like, it seems like the gag is the secondary writer can't, like, he's not super good at being, like, discreet and stuff. And
Well,
so,
he's
like,
also
he
not-
can't
he's
hide.
also-
Yeah.
They also give him the pass of he's not human.
Right. So the thing is, like, he can't really hide his facial expression and stuff. That's one thing. So it's like, okay, either that's bad acting or that's intentional, in which case, bad acting or bad directing there. Then the other thing
Right.
is, like, these characters all have lines, but they don't flow properly. Where it'd be like, oh, it would just
Yeah.
cut from character to character, and they'd be, like, unnecessary pause. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's probably there because, when you shoot a scene with the camera, you shoot one actor, then you stop and then switch to the other actor. Well, I mean, you don't have to stop directly, but like the camera has to at least turn.
Reset position.
Right. And so the thing is, like, that's just bad editing. They should have fucking taken out the dead air there. Right?
Right. Which I'll
But
give it
they
that.
are definitely stiff. Here's the thing, right? Like, out of all the characters who showed up in this episode, the only one I feel like who can actually act like naturally is Sophia. And she shows up and says 2 lines and pisses off.
Oh yeah, the grain
Right, like,
magical lady.
yes.
Okay.
So, like, I'm willing to give this a little bit of a pass because I feel like what's happening is they're doing the thing that they did at the beginning of Coast is like, okay, all the setup right now. So the first couple episodes are just set up, and then there's no real time for the actors to act and stuff. So everybody's super awkward. But
So,
like
so
once
I'm gonna compare this to another show. Given their their decision to have so many writers and apparently shove them down our throat as fast as possible,
oh
it's
yeah,
going the Q Ranger route of setup.
oh fuck yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, like,
Just not as well.
yeah, I mean, writer versus
I'm
writer shows tend to be fast when they introduce writers, but you're
I'm-
right. This is a very Sentai style of introducing it, where it's like, hey, focus on this guy. He's gonna be another person who henshins. Whereas writer usually sets them up as like, hey, this guy exists in this world. Maybe keep an eye on this person. They might get a
Right.
belt at some point.
And it's usually, a handful of episodes. Usually, throughout the majority of Heisei, it was, oh, here's 15 episodes with just the main writer and the supporting cast.
Well, I'm
Oh,
thinking
hey,
like
look, here's this other guy too.
right. I was thinking more of like Kabuto and Ryuki, where it's like, yeah, they introduce other writers early, but the thing is, like, there's a couple ways of doing that, and one is like in Kabuto they just show up to be the villains. In Ryuki,
Right.
they show up because they're doing their own shit, and Ryuki just runs
Right.
into them.
Like they could literally have set this up to where instead of having by the end of this episode 3 writers in one room.
Oh, they are.
Ins-
It's insane.
Instead of doing that, they could have had Ryunosuke and Toma doing their thing of getting, cordial and on the same page and everything, and have the third guy off doing his own thing. We don't have to see them all interact together at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like my theory
To
is
point out and I feel they're doing it to point out, hey, this is another good guy.
right. That's what I'm saying. Is like because he's got the color scheme, plus he wrote on like a golden magic carpet, which is gold. And the thing is like, okay, well, Roma showed up and his color was blue lion. Our main guy is
we
red.
already know who he is.
So right, like he's gonna be the third rider in the intro. So it's like, okay, yeah, this guy is important. And so the thing is like, this show's also doing this weird thing. Is like it's a writer versus writer show, except they like everybody's on the good guys team right now, which is nice because it's different. Yeah, except for the villain,
right?
Like
except for Caliber,
right? Except Caliber, and so the problem happens where it's like everybody just shows up and they're so nice, which is a nice change, but the way the show handles them being nice is they just show up, right? Like they have no urgency, they have no personality, they have no character. It's like, hey dude, I exist in the show, hi, bye, right? It's like, well, whereas normally it'd be like if you're a villain, it's like, oh, at least you have to have an arc to meet the hero, or if you're just some other writer in the world, you're kind of doing your own thing. But because everybody's on the same team, they all just have to show up, which I think this is just a problem. It was sort of in Ghost too, like the first 5 episodes, where it's like they're so focused on setting up the world that everything else just gets tossed out the window.
Right, because like 0-1, they rushed character introductions on it. I won't argue that. To get us to the main 3.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was done better, but again, they were antagonistic towards 0-1, right? So they would have to be.
It was done well, and while yes, there was a lot of world building in 0-1, that world building wasn't 3 episodes. It spanned a good portion of the show as they slowly, continuously built up this world.
Right, I think
we knew the baseline for how the world worked, and then they slowly built upon it, and then it became this grandiose tale, which is fantastic. And I feel that this is doing the Q Ranger route of, we're going to shove all the world building and everything you need to know in the first 4 or 5 episodes. Good luck, hang on. Then we may get to a better portion of the story.
Yeah, I forgot to turn on the scrolling text. Anyway, yeah, you're right. It's doing that weird thing because the worst part is, like, they're doing this because Toma is already good. Like, he's better than the person who should be the veteran here, and like that I think is a misstep because like he's not a bad guy. Like Ryuma, okay, like the secondary writer, right? Blue Lion dude, right? He's a nice guy. He's doing everything to help you. He's teaching you. Why are you rushing his teaching to make your main writer like already good? Unless it's gonna tie back into the plot where it's like, okay, he's just as good because somehow he has memories of doing this shit somewhere, which could possibly happen. But
he had memories of the other guy doing it.
Right. But like, there's no well, yeah, for the first thing, but there's no reason why he did all the shit he did in this episode.
Right. Other than
especially considering you have a secondary writer who's more experienced than you and who's teaching you everything. Like, let the first arc be that he's teaching you about the new world. Like, why the fuck did you just like dump all that exposition in 1 episode? Right?
So the only real aspect of the Tomo rushing through that in this episode, the only part that I willingly and openly accept is him understanding what he was doing when he used the book, when he used the ability from Jack and the Beanstalk, because the guy's like, no, the guy's up there, and he goes, I know what I'm doing. Well, of course he does. He works at a bookstore where he reads basically these same stories to kids. Yeah, of course he's gonna know what to do.
Yeah, that's Honestly, that's the one time I'm like, all right, that's his special ability, right? Like Emu's is games, just knowing games shit. This character is like I know what the fuck I'm doing in a book setting, so I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. It's a weird, like, again, it's one of those things where it's like the episode's rushing so goddamn fast. Like, slow down, have the character figure out, oh, hey, this reminds me of this, and then do the thing. It's like, okay, they're just doing it because they want to rush through. Like, I feel like the problem with this, well, maybe not this episode, but like, okay, it's got the same writer and the same director who have done the first two episodes. And the thing is, like, okay, the writer did Ghost and some more stuff, and the director has done like a ton of fucking tokusatsu, right? Like he did a ton of like did some really good like 01 episodes. So I'm like, okay, and he has like the way his schedule works out, I guess, is like he does some early and then he does some important stuff later. So I'm like, maybe he's just rushing it because like they're not used to doing it, or maybe they're constrained on production or something. Like I feel like this should have been directed better, especially because these are new actors. They don't know exactly what the fuck they're doing, right?
Right.
And honestly, everything in the show sadly kind of feels cheap, right? Like the production design, right?
Yeah,
It's just kind of sad.
which again, we all kind of had the same issue with Build after X8. Because aside from the problems towards the end of X8, X8 was really freaking good. And then Build started, and we all had that, everything hit the brakes, and we're like, what the hell are we watching?
Right.
Like, we had that adjustment period. And I feel every writer and every Sentai, because of the way these shows cycle, is going to have that point. We're going to get really invested in how a show is produced and is written and is given to us in the format which it is, and the scale and amazingness, and whether or not how amazing that show is in our own viewpoints. And then we start the next show, and we still try to hold that show to the previous show standards, and we can't really do that.
Yeah,
we can't do a point. We can't do a point because there should be a level of consistency in production, acting, and quality overall.
Right.
But so there is some lenience for looking at a show and go, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, that's true. Like I feel like I could give it like 5 episodes for it to get its shit together, because like Coast's like early episodes are not good, but like once all the main characters show up and the show really starts, it gets decent. So I feel like that's what's going on, is like the writer wants to tell a story, but not all the pieces are in place, so he's just going through it as fast as possible to set everything in place. Right.
So we have some comments.
Okay.
And they're all from one person, and if you can comment, you're asking "Be here, Rye." I'm kidding.
It's okay.
And because I had the episode up, so I didn't realize he was commenting, so I should have been better at that. But he says CGI motorcycles, which
well, it's better than no motorcycles.
Right, and that is, as soon as I read that was exactly my thought. I was like, well, this is how you can get your motorcycles back in the show, with the frequency that we are used to seeing them. Said the best part of Zio is never supposed to be a part of the show is one of my favorite podcast quotes now.
Yeah, it's true.
And Zero, I'm apologizing to you.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Because, Rye, that should be wrong. Your favorite quote should still and always be
your one?
That your balls have been exposed on stream.
Okay. Okay, so the thing is, like, that's a quote he keeps doing, but the thing is, like, that's not his quote. It's
Right.
That's sort of like a running thing from like the Super Best Friends thing. So I'm like, all right, that's not an original quote. So I can kind of let it sound. But yeah, that's Rye's catchphrase. Sort of was for a bit, but
I loved it because it drove you nuts every time he said it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, you know what, man? Like, I swear because like I don't filter, but I'm like, god damn it. I have at least a minimum barrier here. Like I tried some level of decency, but I was like, nope, fuck it. We're going all the way. Yeah.
He also on the stock footage he says Sentai always wear the same outfit so they can just reuse the same stock footage, which is that is a fair standard Sentai trope of everybody wears the same outfit. It's really noticeable when America does that.
Oh yeah, it's so
okay,
true,
Ryan,
right?
Okay, Ryan, I will accept that is one of. You did say one of, not the best.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're not the favorite. He said people would hate on a show just for having a new idea, which is accurate. I mean,
it's true, but
we have all been on the TV Nihon forums.
Well, I mean, you don't even have to bash the TVN forums. Like, the general feeling of the show is like it's the hosting, except like Ghost, it took. That's not true. Like the first couple of episodes, people were pretty harsh on. Then people were kind of okay with, and then people dropped off like flies, right? And so I'm like, here's the thing, right? Like the counter argument of like, oh, at least it's new, and you're hating it just because it's new. I'm like, the only thing I can go with is the Unreal 4 because everything else in the show has already been done. Right, and done better, which is kind of infuriating. But I'm like,
I feel
like I can only give so much leeway because of because of the pandemic. But I'm like, god damn it, Toei! Like this is a new show. You should have thought of all that crap.
Right. He said everyone said Ghost was. Oh, my cursor's in the way. Wow. The cursor, my cursor threw off the text. This is he said everyone said Ghost was bad. After watching it for myself, it was really good. Which I will second that. Ghost is really good.
Yeah, it's really good if you can marathon it. I
have particular issues with that show, and I voiced the majority of them to Rye, and I voiced the majority of them during the podcast.
Yeah, like that's what I'm
primarily in the one of the issues I had with Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a personal issue that I had with it. Starting in episode 1, if you go back and listen to the podcast for episode 1,
yeah,
the issue I had is you have literally killed the main character.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are the fucking where do you take the stakes from that? Oh, you're gonna stay dead? That's usually what happens.
Right.
That's usually how that works.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost, honestly, yeah, Ghost has like a weird starting point, so it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the stakes are weird, then they get like raised way too fucking high by the end. Right. And then they just like drag on, like it becomes the RPG problem of like, oh, holy shit, the world's gonna end in like 2 days. Oh, what? There's like 100 side quests? Hold on a minute. You know, like that's basically what happens. But again, I feel like this writer has this problem of like he wants to tell a story, but like not all the pieces are in place, so he's trying to put them in place as fast as possible. Which was definitely a problem in Ghost early on. But we'll see. Like, my biggest problem is like nothing is inspired or interesting in this show. Right? Like take out the novelty of Unreal Tournament, not Unreal Tournament, Unreal Engine 4 and Engine 4, and it's like, okay, maybe the fights would be better. But what if they weren't? What if they were just as quality as the freaking, live action fights, which are okay at best? This show still would be kind of mediocre, which is sad, but I'm like, it can still improve. But I'm not gonna like hate on people if they're like, all right, not worth my time, because I'm like, you know what? Don't fucking buy into something hoping it'll get better, because like there's no indication it will. Like we were all hoping it would, because like new era, maybe the Toei finally got their shit together, but like nope, Toei just being Toei, which is like literally every single season is like a fucking dice roll, whether it's gonna be good or bad, right?
Well, I feel it's a dice roll of whether or not it's going to start good.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's like too many writers in the show for it not to be like, oh, just pick that guy if you like him, right? Like, there's a really interesting dude showing up next episode, which is like literally, hey, we heard your complaints of like too many pretty boy, like younger writers. Here you go, old man, enjoy. Right? All power, old man.
So, we should get into this episode. We're gonna, since we have covered a good portion of actually what happens in this episode. I'm gonna do this different than Rye would normally do.
Fine.
And how I plan on doing it going forward is I plan on doing it the way Rye normally does. But I just want to talk about like particular key things that are relevant and I feel are either really fucking hilarious because I like jokes.
That's fair. I was gonna say, like, plot wise, like the last two episodes, like the monsters are not interesting, so like we don't have to give a shit about the plot.
Right. Like, to me, where this is starting out is the standard. We want to alter the world to our ends. That is the monster plan.
Right. Like the
literally the monster plan.
Right. The only thing interesting I see is like, oh shit, they're like some not like the villain cast is a slightly diverse bunch, sort of, or at least they look a little different. So I'm like, and two is like, hey, our headquarters is in the North Pole, and we can just port there because CGI. So I'm like, are we actually gonna go around the world? Because like that's been a fucking long ass time since we've done that in Rider, right? Or at least like later on, maybe.
I want to say the last time I personally remember seeing a series where they went to different locations around the world was,
or just different cities instead of Tokyo.
Was Kyu Ryuger.
Oh yeah.
Sentai, because they ended up that was a worldwide issue, like at least at certain points. 90% of it took place in Japan. But there were points where they were in London and America and, whatnot. One particular person in like an overarching fight scene kind of thing.
Oh, man. You know what the saddest part I just learned about Sentai is Lupad Lupad Ranger versus Pat Ranger. Apparently, loved by adults sold terribly. So it's like, oh my god. That is like the saddest fucking thing. Because it's such an interesting show, but it's like, yeah, the kids weren't super into it. I'm like, oh my god. It's the worst. Man, Sentai is in real trouble. Well, I mean, like, you guys said Cure Major was pretty solid, so maybe not.
Cure Major is the most what the fuck series I have ever watched. But it's goddamn beautiful.
Okay, that's... Like, I was not expecting that, but that's interesting.
It is... Dude, they literally play fucking red light, green light with a monster.
Dude, that's hilarious. That's some Showa level nonsense. I love it.
Yes, 100%, yes. To include the monster designs. But it's done in a way that, A, feels legitimate, and two, just the entire aspect of that entire episode just comes across as awesome. Mainly because the bad guys are cheating at it, because they're the ones commanding the red light, green light.
So it's basically a stand battle. Oh man, that's fucking.
So he literally goes, green light, Yodam light, turns around, everybody freezes, and then he has grunts like poking and tickling the people so they move. It is 100%. It's bizarre nonsense.
Yeah, I know, but like I love how like they're so weird. It's like, yeah, of course they'll cheat. They're the villains, right?
Right. It's like, but it does a great job of exceptionally showing a character's perseverance and determination to do what needs to be done, and it's comes across fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, looping back to this, which is like, honestly, this episode has really interesting points of like how, like, the lore of what the world is and how it works and like how the monsters function and stuff. But it's presented badly, right? That's the worst part because it's actually an interesting setup, right? But it's presented in like the most flat, boring way possible, which just kind of disappoints me.
Right. It comes across as your standard Sentai villain plot introduction.
Right, where it's like, yeah, like it's actually kind of interesting where it's like, oh, if we rewrite this, okay, to get the power, we have to win, and if we win, we rewrite this part of the world, so like they're gone, right? Like it just disappears. Like if the monsters get the power up, like a couple blocks of a city just disappear. You know, that's interesting. Plus, like, all the monsters have, like, different abilities. Different riders have, like, different things going on. Monsters can have, like... Oh, it's like the Ryuki thing where, like, the monsters have, like, special abilities. Where it's like, oh, this is the ant one. It hunts in, like, swarms. Right? It's like, oh, that's interesting. And it's like, oh, that's the, like, locust one or whatever.
Locust
/
grasshopper.
Yeah, and it's protecting this one. It's like, oh, that's clever. And it's like, then they don't do anything clever with it. I'm like, oh, god damn it. You know, like, it was a start. Like, this kind of reminds me of the setup for, like, the Ryuki or definitely the Blade monsters. But then they don't use it. But, I mean, again, first 2 episodes.
Oh. But, like, so for episode 2, it's like, I love the starting interactions in this episode. With him literally showing up on the line, and they go, "Why are you on the line?" And he goes,
okay.
I've written a. He's like, "I read in a book. Your culture finds it rude to walk inside with the same shoes as outside."
Right, and then
which is standard Japanese trope. And she just goes, "But the lions were outside too." And he just like quickly, shiftily, and embarrassingly gets off, and he's like, "You can trust me. I'm not suspicious at all." And with the most suspicious fucking look on his face.
Well, it's not. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the face acting. Like, okay, one either he's really not good at face acting, or that's bad directing. So I don't know what so far because it's too early.
Personally, I think that was the like. So you remember Den-O?
Yeah. Well, parts of.
Do you remember? So the big villain in Den-O was Kai, who constantly made comments of, "I'm sad right now. Is it showing on my face?" And it was like the whole. It was the aspect of he can't tell what emotion he is portraying.
Right.
I feel, given the fact that this dude isn't exactly human, it would make sense that he would make a face that he thinks is, non-concerning.
That would be interesting.
And in reality, he does something that's very suspicious.
Right.
Like, I feel that is something, even if it was something that ended up being because of bad direction and bad acting, can be something that can be used organically in the show to make it not seem that way.
Right. I mean, you're right. Like, you could read that into it. Are there any interviews for this episode?
I have not looked.
Probably not. You're right. I mean, it's pretty early. But, like, considering, like, how much stuff, like, Fu as actor and everybody else was putting in, like, yeah, potentially it's possible that that is what's going on. But because, like, everything else is kind of almost a shit show anyway, I'm just thinking, like, no, this is just done badly. But, again, you're right. It could just be intentional.
Which Rai agrees with you. He says is probably just bad character direction. It takes a few episodes for the actors to understand the role, and that is true.
Yeah, well,
especially if they're new actors. Because I know they like Aruto and Hirobi and Jin all had issues.
Yeah, well,
for in 01, all being new actors.
See, that's the thing. Like, when you have a new actor, I can't blame the actor because I'm like, they're gonna be stiff anyway. That's why you do your job as a director and direct them better, or take the best goddamn shot you can. I mean, or version of the shot, right? Where it's like, yeah, it's your job to train these kids, right? That's why you're a director. If you want to just shoot pretty pictures, fucking be a video. I mean, like, be a cinematographer. That's what they do, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But
Yeah.
so like he basically Ryunosuke, which is the suspicious fellow, basically goes, "Hey, give me your book. This is really dangerous. Stay out of it."
Right.
And Tuma literally just goes, "No."
Yeah. Which is normally this would be like a kind of antagonistic setup, but it's like he's such a nice character. But he also has like no idea about how to interact with people, it seems. So I'm like, oh, okay, he's just straightforward. So I can kind of let that slide. But it's like, yeah, that that is a weird thing, because like it's
But
got
like
that. Yeah.
so Toma saying no. There's obviously reasons why he said no. It's like the issue I have is it literally goes from, "Hey, give me this. This is dangerous. You are untrained. You don't know what you're doing." To Tuma going no, and him go, "Okay, let me take you to my base now."
Well, he got a phone call, so like his superiors probably called him in.
Which I get, and then again, also invasion of privacy because apparently she's watching crap.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I feel like he's just following orders, but without that, yeah, you're right. It would be weird if he hadn't gotten that phone call.
Right. And then there's their brief moment of where his hero shows through, and he apparently really wants sweets.
Oh god, yeah, it's so true. Maybe it's just a thing with like blue riders. Who knows?
Well, yeah, they take him to the portal, and then we get. And I'm going to preface this statement by the fact that I personally feel that Zero One's opening theme song is the greatest opening theme song that has existed in Rider.
Strong words, buddy.
That is my personal. It literally goes 0-1, Kiva.
Oh shit! Not X8.
Those are my top two.
Not Drive. Not
fuck.
X8, there's a lot.
X8 is my third favorite because it let me irritate the ever-loving piss out of somebody for like 4 months.
I was gonna say like Ryuki, Blade, like Fies. Like those are some strong ass openings.
They have fantastic openings. I will not argue that, but those I feel are the reason why for me the 0-1 is the best. Is it is the most musically consistent, solid theme song.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like 0-1's really strong. But like Rider generally has really strong intros. Okay, here's the thing. Like I feel like Rider has a ton of good intros, and then there's a couple that are shit. Right?
Right. Like I will and I want let me add an addendum to my statement is I'm not just looking at the minute 30-second TV version. I'm looking at the entirety of the song.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. Like, there's a couple that are weird, and then they get interesting later on listening, or like they have like, oh, the TV part is the best part. Some of them have that, but like, you're right, they're interesting. None of them are as not great as this one.
Yeah, this one is very, very mediocre. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't set the proper tone for what should be this glorious fantasy epic.
Yeah, right? Like, let's compare, like, the previous Magic-S writers. Like, you have Wizard.
Life is Showtime, which was great.
Pretty great. You have Kiva, right?
Sirloin, Break the Chain, which is...
pretty solid. Hibiki.
He also has...
which is very different, but it's still nice.
Yeah, Hibiki...
Like, it's very fantasy epic.
It makes sense.
Right,
because,
like,
it wasn't initially supposed to be a writer show.
Yeah, but the thing with Hibiki's intro is, like, it feels like you're going on a journey.
Right, it fits the show.
Right, like, we needed an intro like that for this show.
I feel we needed something...
Or if you're going... Yeah, go ahead.
I feel we needed something a little bit more upbeat. The way the ending song. I feel the ending should have been the opening. Because it's a little bit more upbeat than this.
Honestly, like both of them are not great. Like I was
No,
gonna
they're
say,
not.
if we're just gonna steal more shit from Garo, just do a Garo style one, man. Like just make it a little bit dark and moody, right? Or like Blade would have worked too. You know, I mean, like Ryuki would have worked real well, but I'm like, this show is not good enough to deserve Ryuki's intro.
Right. Like the visuals for the opening, fantastic. Music does not match it.
Yeah,
That is
like
my
the
biggest issue. The music does not match what we're seeing outside of the flipbook sections.
oh yeah, like the ending is even worse, where it's like it just seems like their dance is like off key, but it could.
Oh yeah,
I feel
it's
like
not in
that's
time
because
at
they're
all.
missing people, and it's like, oh, as we add people, it might sync up better, but even then, it's still not great. Like, yeah, honestly, I feel like if this had a better intro and ending, it might help the show, right? Like, if, like, imagine fucking Surprise Drive playing for this. Like, okay, yeah, that's a weird mix, but I'm like, that kind of energy is what you need, right?
Right, because like especially coming off of the heels of Zero One, which had this fast-paced, really hyped up theme song, to something that could probably put you to sleep if you tried hard enough.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Like it is such a dramatic shift that literally the moment the theme song started for this show, I went, I miss Zero One.
Oh, dude, yeah, and like the intros, I mean the ending's even worse because it just shows up, right? Usually, Ryder doesn't have an ending song to, or at least it doesn't before the credits and stuff. But like, you'll
The
be
show
watching the
start
episode and then bam, there's this
right.
random ass dancing outro. It's like, what the fuck is this? I mean, like, luckily
That
the show's
is
not too dark where it's like it's hyper contrasting, but like it could get to that point.
go watch Real Soldier. It gets really freaking dark in the middle of that show, and really depressing in the middle of that show, and it literally will. Somebody is dead in somebody's arms. Da 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 da. It's like it is the most whiplash head that I have ever gotten in episodes, because it literally goes death, sadness, sadness, happy, happy music.
Oh, dude, I just thought of something. Fucking Gaim's intro. That
Oh, I
would be.
fucking love the Skype's intro.
Actually, yeah,
Like
Gaim's intro is
that,
freaking great.
like
Like the
that, and
visuals are great too.
it matched the visuals enough to tell what Gaim should have been, this glorious fantasy epic. Because let's face it, that's what the visuals gave us.
Right, like
And
I
then,
wish one of the movies would have fully capitalized. Like the Strawberry Arms one sort of does, but not even.
like, I wanted to touch on the whole samurai war thing
Oh, dude, yeah, I mean
that we were
they
promised from the freaking opening.
they reference it once in one of the movies where it's like this weird alternate universe thing, and then Nago shows up for like a hot second, and he doesn't even look like Nago, and Ixa's not even there. It's like it's so weird. That movie is fucking weird. All right. Um. Yeah.
To be fair, most of the movies are weird.
Yeah, but like Gaim's movies are super weird. Right. But that's because
I
like they
can't
were
even
happening
argue
during the
that.
World Cup shit, so it's like they had to
Yeah,
tie
so
it
they
in
literally had
weirdly.
to the Gaim soccer movie.
Hey man, at least
Ah,
like Wizard got to fucking do a rider kick with the soccer ball essentially because he's supposed to be a soccer player. Um, hey, it would have been better if somehow Black showed up and then we could have two soccer players going at it. But whatever,
uh,
it's fine.
but but yeah, it's like so. Basically, they end up at the North Pole. Why that there of all places? Because reasons.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
mean, because the greatest mage of them all is protecting them there, I guess. Because Santa's a
Magic
mage.
Red is in this.
I was gonna say Santa's a mage in wizard continuity.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that too.
So I was either thinking that or it's like, okay, the two jokes are, oh shit, times are rough. Even fucking Santa has to go Airbnb and rent out the thing, or Santa's one hell of a goddamn landlord, and he can just fucking coast off of it most of the year, and that's how he gets the money for the presents. But
That's why he only works one day.
one day of the year, yeah. You know, by law, he has to work one day of the year to prove he's not just mooching off of everybody's cash. But I like the continuity where they're safe because Santa is the ultimate mage.
But yeah, like yeah, because reasons. At which point we basically again get the whole "you should stop this, it's dangerous," and then the lady comes out and goes, "Oh yeah, no, you were chosen. Have fun." I mean that's basically what it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
We get the brief backstory that again is standard in Sentai. Hey, we all protected this, then we were betrayed.
Yeah, honestly, if it wasn't the bike, I would have been so pissed. I'm like, everybody else worked hard to get their shit, and this kid just shows up and gets everything. I was like, oh no, it's just a bike. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know.
And apparently the books the villains are creating are called alter books.
Yep.
Again, for reasons.
Well, I mean, Wonder Books versus Ultra
things.
Books. Yes,
right.
That's true.
And then we get through, the story. It turns out, hey, we didn't solve the problem from last week because the book is still active.
That's true.
Destroying things, despite the fact that we watched it, the monster, the hand stopped writing in the last episode when Caliber stated he needed to accelerate his plans.
That is interesting. Oh, maybe this.
But it plays. I think this is just one of those. Hey, this crap started while they were at the North Pole. Then got back and went. Oh yeah, that's something we need to go take care of.
Right, that's fair.
But the way it's worded makes it seem like they literally just didn't solve the problem last week.
I mean, that could be possible because, he's a new writer who doesn't know. But again, oh, well, you're right. He didn't fucking rider kick. That would have been really interesting if they're like, oh, you need to rider kick the monster to fully seal it.
Right.
Because he didn't rider kick in the first episode. That would have been a nice tie-in, but it's not. He just decides to rider kick in this episode.
Right. Turns out Mei-chan is an idiot. She's going to be that character.
I mean, she's enthusiastic. I mean, yeah, she's kind of... Okay, here's the thing, right? She's Akiko... Like, she's an Akiko-style character, so it's like she's important to the plot, but we can't really explain why she's around all the time. So, in the early part, she's just going to be bumping... she's just going to be, like, tagging along until we, like, agree that she's part of the group. Right. So it's just early episode issues.
So I want to touch on this, and this is the only aspect of this show that is going to piss me off. For the love of God, shut the books up.
Oh, the henshin devices?
I have no problem with the belts saying things. I had no problem with 01. Or anything else like that. Because they did it in a way where if multiple people transformed, it overlaid them. It overlaid the audio instead of having it one consistent audio for one, then the next one continues and you get 5 minutes of the fucking belt just talking.
Oh yeah, it's the Sentai of like, oh, we have to do all the henshins? Yes, all the henshins. Back to back? Well, we could do them at the same time, but we're gonna do them back to back because we gotta eat up time.
Like it aggravates me when they literally fight for a good 30 seconds after they've transformed, and the book is still talking.
Oh jeez, yeah, you're right. Like this is like the wizard belt talking was a little annoying, but goddamn, this is worse than that because like wizard they learn to shorten it. Hopefully they shorten it too. But considering we're doing all this shit because we can't shoot like a normal rider show, I don't think it's going to go away. Which is probably going to piss off a lot of people. Luckily, I didn't fucking notice that because like I was noticing everything else that was kind of like half falling apart. I guess there's just like so much shit going on, so much shit going wrong. There's like, oh yeah, I even fucking missed something. Um. Anyway.
Like it's just that is something that's going to piss me off once we get to 5 or 6 of them doing this, and then you're going to end up having 10 minutes of a book talking.
Well, they might just do the Sentai thing of like, oh, everybody just henshins together. They might speed it up, but it depends on how much they have for the fights. Because, like, honestly, the one thing of like, oh, we can't shoot a lot of people together. So I'm like, I'm thinking, okay, so it's gonna be one of those shows where we have less monsters. Like, no fucking grunts. I'm like, what the hell is this? Right? Because I'm like, alright, maybe because this monster uses grunts or like attacks in packs, I'll let it slide. But if it happens more and more, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Because at that point, you can just shoot a normal rider scene. Why are you doing everything else?
Right. But, I mean, we get through the very rough CG fight scene after Tomo one-ups Ryunosuke by pretty much unleashing his ability immediately.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Like, he seems
to be fair, he used it last week too.
Right, that's fair, but I feel like he's a little too capable because it makes Ryunosuke pointless. Like, he's the nice guy who's helping you, but like, we don't even need you, bro.
Right.
I mean, like, the bike stuff was nice that it's included, but it's basically like the horse riding stuff in Garo. So, it's nice it's there, but like, ultimately it just pads out time.
I will admit, since the bikes got mentioned, I really like the fact that they have different vehicles.
Oh yeah, that's nice. I mean, like I think this is the first tri-wheel, like, shit, there's a name for it.
The first trike.
Yeah, like motorized trikes. Basically, it's a snowmobile on land. That's what those fucking things are.
I've always enjoyed when different riders had different vehicles. It's part of why I like Fies, despite the fact that part of that was just absurdity. Your vehicle turns into a freaking one of the bad guys from RoboCop. There's a problem.
Well, to be fair, like the Fies gears were supposed to be like a population control thing. So
which makes sense. It looked like RoboCop.
Yeah, I know.
Like the RoboCop robot.
No, that's a Metal Hero, and that came out before.
No, not. I'm not meaning RoboCop.
Yeah,
one of the Sentry bots.
Yeah, I know. It's a good point. Yeah, it's. I think it's just Autovagian was too cool. They're like, shit, we gotta give Kaiser something. And it's like, yeah, that form is strong, but goddamn, is it goofy looking. But anyway, freaking guns on motorcycles.
It just looks different.
Yeah, I like it.
Then what the standard is, oh, well, I've got a bike too. It looks slightly different than yours.
Yeah, like if all the riders show up and like if the bikes are all CG anyway, like fucking make them different. It's interesting. Right. Or like give them different vehicles. Like they don't all have to have bikes. I'm fine with it. The problem is then it'd be a lot more like Sentai, but I'm like, fuck it. As long as they're different enough, I'll be fine with it.
But yeah, so they kick the grasshopper's ass. And he gets the Jack and the Beanstalk book.
Right. And I also like how Ryoma like doesn't even stop. He's like, hey, new book. This is how you use it. Here you go. Try it out. Like, he's nice. It's so weird for a writer.
That's the thing. Ryunosuke told him, not to use it because he's not ready for it. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's the exact words.
Well, I think he meant to give it to him as like, hey, power up your sword. But he just like henshined with it.
Because that's what I think that's what it was, and he just goes, "Nope, I'm going to put it here." And this gets into the fundamental issue I have with the let's make Ryunosuke basically pointless. Is he should not have known. Like, obviously, you could look at that out and go, "Yeah, I can fit more than one book here," obviously. But for him to know to put it there and how to trigger it to where it merges with both, and that whole thing, he should not have known how to do.
Agreed.
And I refuse to accept the, "Oh, well, it was just luck." Like,
I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious, but it's like, wouldn't the smart thing to be like, well, I guess it would be weird for a normal person who's never seen a rider thing to be like, oh, pull out your henshin thing and then put it in. Especially when you have extra slots, like 2 extra ones.
But
you're right, it's freaking weird for ridership.
Where would you logically have thought to put that?
It's got like 3 slots.
If you were going to follow this, where would you put it? You would put it right next to the other one.
Yeah, you're right, not to the other side, right?
Yeah. You wouldn't have gone, okay, I'm going to put it on the far end.
Far end, so both of them open up.
Go 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
this isn't O's, you don't do the sides first.
Well, I guess you do because of the way the gimmick works, but like, yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where, like, the weird part is this is the guy who wrote Ghost, and Ghost's thing is like, hey, I have no idea how to use this fucking belt or anything, right? Yurisen like has to constantly yell at him and teach him how to do it all the fucking time.
God, I freaking loved Yurisen.
Oh, Yurisen was great. The reveal of who Yurisen is freaking good. Don't spoil it.
That was one of the best things. I was like, oh, now everything
makes sense, right?
Fucking sense.
So good.
God, I gotta get Pixie to that point.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, at least you could just show sassy Yurisen. Like,
and then show her that.
Just show her that. Yeah, it would make perfect sense.
But yeah, and we get both the rider kicks this week. And did anybody else have decade flashbacks for a second?
Oh, with the
book pages.
Thing? Yeah, that was cool. And then the freaking like sword finisher. I'm like,
the sword piercing all the way there. I was like, it's very, very good.
Yeah, it was really nice. Actually, that's like one of the nicest rider kicks.
To me, the only thing that spoils this is the Unreal Engine. That's it.
Well, I mean, like, I can't fault them for that because I'm like, well, the whole damn scene is there at this point. So, like, unless they do it in the real world, they're not going to overlay it, right? Because it would be weird to have them just be like, oh, like, okay, they could have green screened it in, but I guess for, like, speed and to make the effects easier to put in, because, like, if they put a live action character in, then they would have to freaking use After Effects to mark out all the effects going on to the live action actor and then sync it with the CGI background and all that shit, and it's like that would take way too much time. I mean, like, it wouldn't take a lot of time, but like unless you had the pipeline set up for that, it would take a bit of time, right? And like it's a lot easier just to be like, oh, it's already in the game, and you just put a couple more meshes on top and then make them glow. It's not that hard.
Right, and it does look really nice. I'll give it that. But in doing so, he gets another book. Peter Fantasia, or for those of us who've ever actually paid attention to Disney, Peter Pan.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, technically it's not a Disney thing because the Peter Pan Corporation owns it, and like it basically funds children's hospitals and stuff. Interesting.
Because Disney made them.
Okay, whatever.
Shows what I know. I don't deal with.
Yeah, Peter Pan's like the one British thing that's still alive. Let's go with that.
Having done the research into the actual story of Peter Pan, that was fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Pan is dark.
Yeah, well, it's basically like you can't run away from like growing up, essentially, right? But
I mean that was part of it. But yeah, there's some dark crap in that one, in the actual original Peter Pan stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
literally, he was killing Lost Boys because they got too old. Because he didn't know any better.
Yeah.
The whole point is like he wasn't taught the things that you need to be taught to become an adult, to know right from wrong. All he knew was, let's have fun. You're not fun anymore. You're going away. And it was really fucking dark.
Damn, that's interesting. But you have to remember, like, a lot of the older fairy tales were like a lot closer to like Grimm's fairy tale style, which is like they used to be folklore. Like they weren't like sanitized like Disney style fairy tales for a long time, because folklore is not nice because it's meant to teach you a lesson.
Right. Like I love the Grimm tales. There are some disturbing ones, the Little Mermaid in particular.
Oh shit, yeah.
Go look up that one, it's not nice.
Yeah. Fuck, Cinderella is pretty freaking dark too.
Yeah.
Anyway, like anything that Disney stole and made kiddie is not how they actually were.
Yeah, no. If you want to go find these tales to, see them in their entirety, and all you know about them is the Disney version, strap in and be prepared. And go find a therapist when you're done. You might freaking need one.
Yeah, they're pretty intense.
But yeah, so they defeat the monsters of the week because it's the show.
It's the show. Yeah, it's fine. Honestly, like I was like, at least they both got to Rider kick it. And the other thing too I noticed is like the suits are different, which is nice. They're not just like palette swaps. Like the helmet's different, and like where their scarf things are and what type they are is different.
That is something I noticed. So when Saber transforms, his book goes on the left, and that's where or on the right, and that's where his dragon form is.
Yeah.
When he puts in the Jack and Beanstalk, it goes on the other side. It appears on the right.
Right.
When Blades transforms, he puts his book in the center, which is why his lion's head is in the center.
Oh, that's
why his design stems from the center. So it all depends where the design is. Will all depend on where that book goes. So technically, if Saber put his in the center, he would have the dragon head here.
Interesting. Well, I guess that'd be a little too much like Wizard, but yeah, that's cool. Which means yellow or gold Rider is gonna put it in the other
on the other side.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, considering you can see it from the back, where it's like, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's this freaking magic carpet dude. Because like
yellow, and he's on a freaking yellow
carpet. Yeah, whereas like secondary shows up on a blue freaking line. He's the blue, right? So it's pretty obvious. But even though next week's episode is not about him, though, that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. Which I was gonna get to that. So we get Calibur's menacing line from this episode, the same line he said last episode. I'll have to accelerate my plan then.
Yeah, he's like shittier Evolt. No, not Evolt. Shittier Stark. Like he's got like the thing with Stark where it's like, oh, he's always in suit, and it's like, oh, all according to plan, or this is my plan. But I'm like, you haven't done jack shit. Like you're lucky you have a good suit, buddy, because otherwise, like you got nothing.
But yeah, so Reintro's basically hanging out with Toma now, and that May wants to help out, and Rintaro goes no, and she goes, well, fine, then you can't have these chocolate eclairs.
Right. I mean, yeah, he's basically got the hero thing going on, but even more kiddie. I feel like this show is a lot more kiddie because Japan's kind of going through a rough patch right now, which fine, like Forza was a little more kiddie too, so I'm like, that's fine as long as it's solid. I won't mind.
But I like the fact of Greenhouse the whole does the whole. No, as a swordsman, I must have restraint and maintain my good physique. On the other hand,
yeah. I love how he tries to reason it. It's like it's not gonna work.
He's like, but glucose is good for the brain, so maybe it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I love that very normal person justifying
Right,
their
right. It's such
cheating on their diet.
bullshit, but it's like, fuck it, I can justify it, therefore it's good. It's great. Right? Like, at least it
Um,
gives them personality. Right? It's a
that,
start.
yeah, and then Toma has a flashback of the girl who I guess got ripped from his hands by whatever when he was younger, and then somebody shows up on the magic carpet, and here's again these are the small moments that give me pause with this show. His exact words are, "Hey Toma, long time no see." Which
Right.
one clearly shows that they know each other.
Yeah. But like Toma
And
might not know this guy.
Toma's response is, "Who are you?"
Yeah,
In a
yeah.
very panicked way.
This is gonna be
I'm
interesting.
like, that bothers me when they do that.
Well, the point is like this is another one of the tropes of this guy where it's like, oh, dark past, but we're not gonna reveal it, and it's like shit happened 15 years ago. Why is it always 15 years ago with this damn writer?
Right, because
And
as
right,
I don't know his name, so I don't know this guy's name, so I'm going to call him something, and I apologize if it seems inconsiderate or impolite or offensive in any ways, but I'm going to call him Mr. Twinkles.
oh, you're talking about the narrator.
Yes, because he states that, hey, these met up. Their reunion will greatly affect Toma's destiny.
Yeah, that's interesting. Where I'm like, I was like rival, but I'm like, what's the point? They're gonna be other writers. There's no point in having him rival him. But I guess like his secondary writer is not his rival, so maybe he needs another one. But then he's also nice, so I'm like, what the fuck does this even mean?
And I have a question. Was it necessary to have Mr. Twinkles go like this for like 2 seconds?
No, man. And you
At the
think
end of the episode?
his
It was
existence is unnecessary, but it's gonna be important
everything.
at some point, and I don't like that.
Right. I
Yeah.
have a feeling he's going to be. He's like, oh, I was the original protector of the book, or I'm the physical manifestation of
Oh,
the
that's
book.
even worse.
It's gonna be some.
Oh, it's
Deus
gonna be
Ex Machina
something stupid.
bullshit.
I know. God damn, that's even worse.
But yeah, we get the ending dance,
Which
with
is so off key.
added.
When they're dancing, I'm like,
It's a
okay,
little
they
bit more
must have
on beat
cut
now.
scenes. That's the
It,
only
it
way.
it seems a little bit on beat, a little bit more than last week's, but yeah, no, it's
Yeah, a
still
little
awkward.
bit better, yeah, but still so off.
And the fact that it has Kenzan in the outro.
Yeah, that's weird.
Um, but yeah, for some reason, next week involves it's the first official Reiwa Daddy.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since we had a dad writer or, an older guy, so it'll be interesting, but like he's so just the trope, right? Of like, oh, get out of my way, kids, I'll show you how it's done. Right? I'm
Right.
like, I like this better in fucking Hibiki, but I'm like, apparently that's what you could show about most of what's going on in the show, but it's like, hey, you know that one show you should have watched to do this? They didn't watch to do this. So it's like,
Like
oh no.
and I feel on top of that we get more characters next week for the Sword of Logos.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
because
if they're
there's
gonna
somebody else
introduce,
there's somebody else in the trailer while they're at the Sword of Logos space that I don't recognize.
well, it might be
That's like,
the mechanic.
which I think is the case. But it still was like they're getting to that point of now we have the new guy who just showed up this episode.
Mhm.
What is his name? Ren, I think his name is.
I guess I don't.
Um, Kenzan,
Right.
or no, was it Kenzan?
Oh, who cares? The new
Yeah,
kid.
whichever the daddy writer, and
Oh yeah.
and then this guy. Um, this is why I made the Q Ranger issue of we're gonna shove characters down your throat
Oh,
real
dude,
quick. just to get through the introductions of having them and them overcoming and working together.
Yeah,
Because
Q
these are
Ranger
good
made
guys.
no sense. Why did they do that? Like, they went planet to planet. Like, why the fuck were they all, like, getting together? Like, oh, here's, like, 3 people an episode. I'm like, dude, like, give it, like, 3 episodes, man.
The Garo section alone should have taken at least 2 episodes.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's true.
Like that whole aspect, because he literally went through an entire character arc in half an episode. Because it was, no, fuck you, want nothing to do with you people, to I would marry you if I could.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it was like that level. It went from hate to that level of idolization.
Yeah. You know what the worst part is? That's basically, okay, their setup is essentially, okay, my people are dead. I hate everyone, to like, alright, I'm gonna begrudgingly work with you, asshole. Um, and that's basically like the Kiva 1986 plotline, right? Like, it's just, uh, what? Jiro
Hell,
and Otoya. And that was so much better than that shit. And I was like, that's real
honestly,
sad.
to keep in writers, the 9 times out of 10, that is the secondary writer character to start with. Of, I've got my own shit, you're in my way.
Right. It's like lately they haven't been doing that. It's because we have like third writers or fourth writers, which end up being villains. So it's like, well, we're gonna throw that at the villain. And then you get fucking Bowser.
Yeah, fucking Thousand Island. Jesus Christ.
Right.
Like, as much as I despise his character, I loved his character to start with.
Oh yeah, like when he was just
Everything
doing the
about his
boardroom
character-
shit, he was great.
Oh yeah, when he was evil CEO, fantastic. I hated his ass, but that was the point.
Right. Like even early
And then it
Bowser
just-
in suit was okay, but then it just got like, oh, I'm surviving because I need to be alive for the plot. And it's like, oh, why?
And also because I'm very good at running away. You didn't win, I left.
Oh god, it's true. Yeah. But anyway, we like fucking dissed Bowser so many times. So this show,
It's worth it.
yeah, I know. But it's been like an hour and a half. Some goddamn how. I don't know how this happened.
I don't either.
Yeah.
To be fair, we covered a good portion of last episode and just random thoughts to start with. So
Yeah, honestly,
we-
normally I'd be like, "Oh yes, this is a good episode. Let's see what happens," or like, "God damn, this is terrible. I want to.
right.
I hope they
that's-
improve." My only thing right now at this point is like, look, man, I can't even recommend that you watch this show. Maybe it gets good, and then I'll start telling you people to watch. But like right now, I'm like, 5 episode rule. Like I can't like. I'll go through it most likely, but I can't tell people to be like, yes, stick through it. 40 episodes of this. I'm like, maybe it's the Coast problem of like the first arc was shit and it gets decent in the middle, right?
Like,
And
I'm
like,
going
I'd be
to-
glad if it was that, but like, I don't know.
personally, I will tell people to stick with it. Because, to be fair, the majority of the times, this type of stuff balances itself out. It is very rare that a show that starts off bad stays bad. Because the show starts to get traction with what it's trying to do, the story it's telling, and the characters and whatnot. And 9 times out of 10, they predictably get better. There are some that get great, and then fumble at the last, couple of episodes. Or they just get great and just stay great all the way through. It's like, it is a dice roll.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, it gets better.
Maybe.
Period.
Honestly, I feel like I have to see like one good like Monster of the Week episode to tell exactly where the fuck this show is going. Because like I want to see it function at like a competent level with like all the mechanics in play. Right.
The main issue I have with that, and like I understand the necessity of the Monster of the Week given the nature of the show. but you were essentially creating a writer versus writer series. Put the other freaking writer and have him show up at least.
Oh, I mean, like, Caliber's around. What the fuck is he even doing? Right, like, I guess maybe he's too overpowered if he shows up.
He's accelerating his plans.
Right. But the problem is, like, that's very much a Sentai move, where it's like, oh, the villains are just sending out monsters, where in, like, Rider, okay, Guy didn't show up, right? But he still sent out, like, aims after 01.
Right. Like, I feel at minimum, Caliber should have been standing on a rooftop watching this.
Yeah, right? Like, even
At
Sentai villains do that shit.
Be there. Whether or not you're going to take place in a fight or anything, be there. It adds an air of menace and threat to your character if you were physically there.
Or him or one of the other ones, because they don't all agree, which is interesting, because, like Caliber's
right.
like, oh shit, I gotta accelerate my plans, and then there's another one who's super excited, and the other two are just kind of a little more annoyed that all this crap is going on. So it's like, yeah, they're not all single-minded, which is nice.
Right, like there's multiple routes that this could go to be good.
Right.
And by good, I mean not start of 01 good, because it's already kind of screwed the pooch on that. But decent enough that it would be able to hang with what we have come to determine as the bar.
Yeah.
To me, they're
right. They're like, that's the thing. Like, that's my biggest problem is, like, normally I'm like, oh, well, this is standard, right? I'm like, no, this is clearly subpar writer. Right? Like, these two episodes are like, it's not, like, it's okay, but for, like, Kamen Rider, I expect a little bit better, because they've been doing this for a long time. Like, if this was, like, a fan production, I'm like, alright, those weren't solid, but, like, for, like, a first-time production company or something, like, alright, you guys did okay. It wasn't perfect, but, like, you're getting there. For Toei, I'm like, dude, man, what the hell is this?
To be fair, we have seen subpar shows that started out subpar get really freaking good. We've had one that got okay and then just kind of stayed there. If not for Was and Decade.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, no, that's not even true. Like, Decade kind of fell apart, but, like, the first two episodes were actually really solid for Decade.
Oh no, I don't mean Decade.
No, I know you're talking about Zio, but like
Zio.
Yeah, I mean, like, fucking even Guy had a strong start. God damn it. Yeah, you could say, like, okay, Coast definitely had a real shit start. I will give it that. Like, the early episodes are like, okay, here's the gimmick. I'm gonna show it off. Like, goddamn, the Newton and Edison episodes are fucking straight garbage. Right? Like, the only reason the Newton episode at least looks decent is because the fucking CGI, like, oh, we're levitating like a quarter of the city, but I'm like, that's from an O's movie. Right? That's not even your CGI shot. Right.
But yeah, like, there are shows that have started out bad and turned out to be great. So I would say at least try to stick, if you are watching this and you're deciding to give up on it, at least try to give it to the first arc. Let it get through whatever rushed world building it's doing and character introductions to where we can actually get to the crux of the story.
Right. I say give it, like,
this is what's going on.
No, I was gonna say give it the first arc, like, first 5 episodes. If you've got the stomach, give it, like, the first 13. Generally, like, the first arc plays out between, like, the first, like, 10 to 13 episodes.
Right.
But, like, I'm not gonna tell people to be like, oh, you know, in this fucking pandemic world, yes, enjoy more mediocre or miserable writer. I was like, no, man. If this is really not clicking, like, find something else. Especially week to week, like, this might play okay if you marathon it. right? Like week to week, it might be rough. I'm not gonna tell you to stop. I'm not gonna tell you to continue. It's up to you.
Like, obviously, personal choice comes into everything. We have no say in what you watch. We're not the TV police. Um, but yeah, it's like my personal feeling for my own is like there are a few shows that I watch that I just up and quit because I couldn't take it anymore for certain things, and I'm like, in hindsight, looking back, it wasn't as big of a deal breaker as it should have been. Because going back is like, yeah, no, this is aside from this one particular issue that I majorly had, and everything else is kind of that bothered me. But the show is like, I can ignore that. Biggest thing, like Ninja, because I started rewatching that because Rye did, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is nowhere near as bad as I remembered it to be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like in marathon form, a lot of bad shows are not as bad because you can see the arc that the writer is going on. It just kind of gets lost when you have to watch that week to week. Like if you watch Wizard and you're watching it and you're like, what the fuck is Gremlin doing? Like, why is he around? But if you watch it in marathon form, it's like, oh, it's like perfectly shows
because
his arc.
Because unlike here, it's like we'll watch it for a week and then we'll forget half of what we watched this episode. By the time next week rolls around, it's like that happens.
Right. I mean, there are very few shows which are like, okay, you can't watch them week to week, or I mean, back to back for too long. Like O's is one of those where it's like it's actually pretty solid, but it actually kind of gets a little monotonous if you try to like binge through the whole damn show at once.
Right.
Like
it does get a little samey.
Yeah. Like the middle Wizard is just garbage, so it's not even worth it.
Like Deno gets a little bit samey, I feel. The overarching story is fantastic, but there are a couple of episodes that's like, oh my god, this just feels like I just watched this.
Yeah, like Blade is sort of like that. Blade's problem is like it's not Modern Rider, so like you know how in like Modern Rider, like every fight they get an upgrade or they learn something or they get stronger. Like Blade is like I literally there's like 5 episodes or something where it's like they just fight the monster and like nothing.
That's it.
Right? Like they don't get stronger, they don't like take the cards or anything because like the problem with Blade is like it's got the perfect gimmick to have like the collectathon, except it doesn't have a collectathon. Right? So it's like almost like, oh, these are okay Rider episodes, but it's like when you rewatch it, it's like, oh yeah, you can pretty much just skip these. There's like basically nothing happening. Which isn't a knock against Blade, but it's like, yeah, it's just a different era of Rider.
Right. And to be fair, Fies was the same way. There's a lot of Fies that I feel could have been either cut or together.
The fights, especially in Fies, like a lot of the fights just don't matter because they're only there because it's a Rider show.
Right, and God, dude, my biggest issue with Fies, my God, just fucking talk to each other. 90% of Fies would have never happened if they just would have fucking talked to each other.
Right. I mean, like the thing is, like Fies. Some of it, okay, like maybe 2/3 of it you can excuse where it's like, okay, they're holding on to like some crazy secrets that they don't want normal people to know about, so they're not really going to talk. But yeah, there's like 1/3 of the show where it's like, no, you guys are just being idiots, right? Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, I can kind of get that, but the other thing about Fies is there's like a lot of shit going on that you have to read between the lines in Fies, right, which is great. Like, one, either if you can do that on your first watch, great. If you can't, and then you have to rewatch Fies, and you're like, oh, that's actually what's going on. It's actually really interesting from a writing point of view, but not so much watching it. Maybe
when Rye had me watch it, he set me down with the intention of there's going to be things that you need to like look for and understand that this isn't just what's on the surface. So I had that understanding of going into it of there are other things that play here beyond what we're seeing.
Right.
Like
Fies is more soap opera than fucking Rider Show. Which is really interesting. Whereas like Ryuki is more like slice of life than Rider Show. Well, I mean it's like 50% slice of life, 50% Rider Show, which is probably like the best mix I think I've ever seen. But it's like we don't make Rider shows like that anymore, which is sad. I mean shit, actually none of the other Rider shows are like that. I mean maybe O's a little bit, but you know.
O's a little bit more, but
yeah,
we haven't had anything like Ryuki. Hell, we haven't had anything like a lot of really good, strong Heisei Rider.
Yeah, well, the worst part about Build is it could have been like that. Like the whole base of everybody hanging out in the cafe was set up like that. I mean, like, I mean, shit, they could have at least gotten to the Kiva level of it, which I think they sort of do. But like the Kiva cast like bounce off each other. Well, I mean that's not true. Like the Build cast bounce off each other pretty well too.
Like it just there wasn't enough of it.
Yeah, like
there wasn't that full sense of camaraderie that you had with these characters in older Rider.
Yeah, I mean it's more like you don't get a feel of like them as like you don't get a sense of them living in a world. It's like, oh, this is a Rider set. You know, like that's the biggest problem with the Build basement is like, oh, a lot of cool shit happens, or like the cafe, it's like a lot of emotional stuff happens. But it's like they never interact with anybody else for the most part. So it's like they might as well not even be in this war. Right? So whereas like Kiva and Ryuki and all that, it was like, okay, they have their own shit going on, but then they have to go and deal with the real world, and it's like, oh, they have other problems besides being a Rider, right? Which is interesting.
And then in terms of Saber, with the way that things seem to be progressing with the show, I feel that being an issue that may end up being an issue in this show too.
Well, I mean, Saber has the advantage of it's gonna have a big cast. So it could have the Kabuto solution of like, oh, we have just so many people, we can just bounce off each other, and it'll make it look like we're inhabiting the world. So yeah, there are workarounds to it. I mean, Ghost sorta has this problem too, where it's like everybody is just in the temple. Like the paranormal investigation squad is pretty much the whole world. Sort of thing, but it's like, well, they go out and do cases, so you know every once in a while.
Usually, it's because somebody came to them.
Yeah, but at least they sort of have to go out and do stuff. Whereas this is like, I don't know how this show's gonna go, right? Like it could just be, a Sentai thing where it's like, oh, here's another mission, go and do it, and it's like that works in Sentai because they have, like, that's the structure of Sentai. It's not really the structure of Rider, right? So it's gonna be interesting. Like the show has potential. It can get good. Me saying that doesn't magically make it get good.
Right.
That's the worst part.
And you know, blanket statement is again, it's like don't necessarily rely on somebody else's opinions of a show. Because, as you can see from visiting any number of forums for any show that has ever existed, there are going to be varying differences of opinions. Some people are going to think the show is the greatest thing ever. Some are going to think it's the crappiest thing ever. And it's up
I have
to
seen
you,
one review.
Audience.
One review. People seeing it better,
but it's up to that particular person to decide if this is a show that fits them.
Agreed. Yeah.
For me, it's still kind of mediocre, but this is again, Tokusatsu is my bread and butter. It's like my favorite thing ever. So yeah, I may give it more of a shot than just a casual watcher.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like 100%, I'll give this way more of a chance because I mean I gave Cure Ranger a chance, and go listen to our podcast and what a clusterfuck that was to start with. So I will give the show a much bigger chance than most the general audience will. If it's for you, it's for you. If not, awesome.
Yeah.
I hope you find something you do enjoy that fits you better. It's like,
Well, I mean, I hear that new Ultraman show is pretty good. So, if Rider's not doing it, there are options, people.
right? There's a multitude of options, especially in Tokusatsu. And hey, just remember, for those of you who are going, I don't know if this show's for me. Just remember, once the show ends, you won't have to wait another year to see what happens next.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Right, I think that's like the biggest problem, where it's like 01 ended and like literally the next week this started. I'm like, God damn it! Like if we had like a week or 2 weeks break, I think people would have received this better.
I think that's where a lot of people's expectations end up being skewed with the start of the next show. Because, like I said, we literally just came off the epicness that was 01. We hit this, and it's a giant hit the brakes. What the fuck am I watching? Especially with one of the first scenes is Mr. Twinkles.
Yeah, honestly, that character is doing a lot of more damage to the show than I don't even know what the fuck.
I feel that character is doing more damage than every other issue I have with this show.
Yeah, agreed. Like, I think at this point, I'm just gonna fucking skip like the first minute of the next episode and see if that makes a difference.
Literally just skip right into the episode.
Right into the episode, yeah. See what happens.
But again, it's like it's not bad, but it's not great either. It's very high, low to middle ground.
Right. It just depends on like how much tolerance you have for Rider turning into Sentai, and it's like if you have more of a tolerance, or if you have more of a preference, or if you're more.
I freaking love Sentai too, so to me,
right. Or if you're okay with being a lighter tone show, because like a lot of people like, oh no, I go to Sentai for like lightness. I'm like, well, that's kind of a bullshit argument, because like they're two different franchises. Like, one doesn't owe the other like a tone, right?
Right. And like, to be fair,
yeah,
the reason why I feel we have Cure Major, which is, as Rai put it, hilariously fantastic, is the reason why we have that is because last season got fairly dark. So we have the lighter tone show to kind of woo-saw us down from that very dramatic series.
I know, right? Like
that very much could be what Saber is, that breather series.
Yeah, I feel like that's what they're trying to do, because like a lot of uncertainty in Japan. So they're probably trying to calm the kids down, but like they might misstep and make it a little too just like pandering and kid friendly, or quote unquote kid friendly. But then again, it could just be the early episodes.
Right.
So we'll see.
But then we also do have another possible wrinkle, by the way, because I almost forgot about it. This series run its majority portion of the series in 2021. Which is the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider.
Oh, God.
So technically, this is also the 50th anniversary series. I don't know if they're going to go, oh, well, the show started in 2020, so it's 2020s, and let the next Rider be the anniversary series.
They're probably going to make the next Rider, because it's whatever starts in the anniversary year. But you're right, there's no guarantee that they won't turn this into the anniversary series.
Right, because like I said, the majority of the series will be aired in 2021.
Yeah,
because it's slowly been rotating on when this show will start.
Yeah,
because of how calendars work.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say um it like if they want to do a comedian, it's so weird considering we just got Zio a couple of years ago, right? Which was like this huge like crossover thing. So it's kind of
Yeah,
weird thinking
it
like,
was the
oh,
hue that was the anniversary.
right, like, and then we're like, oh shit, there's another like anniversary. It's like, yeah, that's weird because it's like Rewa and it'd be like the third Rewa show, but like we don't want to link to the other show, so it's like, fuck, it's gonna be weird. For
Right. So
God's sakes!
like,
Oh,
I
actually, I
mean,
hope they don't make this the anniversary because I'm like, how? How are you gonna do that?
right. You literally
Unless you're
have
just gonna
two.
make like each of the writers just be writer tropes.
Like, I mean, that would be the only thing that they could do to continue to follow the statement that they made about keeping Heisei and Reiwa separate.
Right.
Because it's either that or
Like I mean,
cameos start happening.
yeah. Like if they're gonna go with like Reva has to be separate, like just make a fucking movie at that point. Like just a 50th anniversary movie.
Right. And then screw it at that point, just do
Just
it for the movie.
right.
And don't even make it Kamen Rider Saber.
Yeah. Who
Just
cares?
do
Generations or
Kamen
whatever.
Rider. Kamen Rider 50. That's all
Yeah.
you need.
Right. Like they sort of did for the 45th, but yeah, you're right. Like they could do that. Uh,
And just do one massive movie where you have Shocker, Foundation X,
oh, nobody needs
and
foundation.
all that, and just have this, the amalgamation of both of or of all of like the villain organizations.
I mean, Shocker already swallowed everything else that's not Foundation X, so like it's possible. Also, like we haven't seen the Showa writers in like a while since the Heisei Generation movie started coming out, so like it's about time. I mean, like they have to show up for the 50th, right? Like
Oh
there's no
yeah,
way they're
they'd
not.
have to. I don't. You can't do. Here's 50 years of Rider. Oh, we're gonna ignore the first half.
Yeah, that'd be insane. But
But
anyway,
we should wrap this up.
yeah, yeah. So we've been going for like almost 2 hours.
Yeah, and 1 hour 56 minutes.
Right. Um, so this was better. Um, Next one looks interesting. Hopefully, the first arc is the biggest issue and the show stabilizes because it has potential, right?
Oh,
So,
this show has a lot of potential.
right, especially when like if we see more actors because these are just kids, right? Like they don't know how to act for the most part, right?
Right,
Like so,
getting
yeah,
the older cast into it may make it
right.
feel more rounded.
That's what I was saying. Like once like Caliber and Ryder Dad and whoever else shows up, like maybe we'll get a better level of acting thing, which might even out the show. Maybe we might get a different director who knows how to shoot more than just action, which I feel like that's what the hell's going on with this. Where it's like, oh, you just got a director who's really decent at action, except now the action CGI, so like he's got nothing to do, which is such a weird choice. Um, but anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. Sorry about the super long ramble. I don't know how this turned into 2 hours.
Honestly, you're you and me both.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Like, thank you all for listening. I know part of the issue was the fact I was looking at the wrong timer for half of that. I was looking at the average watch time, which now
Oh
currently
yeah,
only says it's 56 minutes. So I literally thought we've only gone 56 minutes. Then he's like, "Oh, we've almost gone 2 hours," and I looked at the actual timer. I'm like, "Holy crap!"
yeah, yeah.
So I apologize. Part of that is my fault. Part of it, and a lot of it, just we both have a habit of not so much rambling, but actually back and forth, which sparks us all onto different paths. So it's like at that point, it is what it is. We personally got to get better for both ourselves and our audience, and that'll be a process because this is a new setup because we don't have Rye, who pretty much kept us in order. I'm gonna miss Rye for this. But thank you all for listening and putting up with us for the 2 hours that we have been going. Hopefully this show does pick up better. If not, I'll stick with it just so I continue to talk about it. So we will see you back on Tuesday for more of the wonderful, wonderful antidepressant known as Cure Major. And we'll be back here again next Wednesday.